Yeah, well then let's roll without video and fuck the Taured overlords.
You are now listening to Cryptid Cocktail Party. Creatures, let's meet for a drink. It's a treat. Join us. Join us in the fight. Cryptid Cocktail Party. Cryptid Cocktail Party.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Cryptid Cocktail Party, a show where we have a few drinks, share a few laughs, take a dive into the unknown. I'm your host, Dave. Normally, I'm joined, as always, by Sarge, but he is unfortunately doing something. I honestly don't know what he's doing, but I got a special guest today, special co-host. I got Chris Cullari from Scared All the Time. What's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me on. I brought I was just telling you before we started, but in honor of the cocktail, it's 11 a.m. here in Los Angeles where I'm recording, and I have some brunch margs lined up. So that's my cocktail that I'm bringing to this cryptid party.
Well, I mean, Los Angeles is, the land of excess. So, I mean, I guess having two double fisting margs at 11 a.m. is, I would assume, par for the course there.
Well, it is for some people. I normally I would have one, but I made these for my wife and and she wasn't digging the mango was maybe a little not properly ripe. So I think it works as a marg base, but I ended up with two. So I figured, what the hell? We're going to be talking ghouls and goblins or whatever. So,
I mean, I guess it's good to get lubed up early, because this story's kind of weird. It's not the craziest story, but it's definitely one of like the more interesting, I feel like. I tried to find something fun for you. That's the best way I'll put it.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we could get this together. All right, Chris, you're a smart man, a well-traveled man, I assume. Have you ever been overseas, across the pond to Europe or anything like that?
I have been across the pond to Europe. I went in middle school. My aunt and uncle were living in Belgium for my uncle's job. So I was over there. And there's photos of me seeing the Eiffel Tower and stuff. I don't really remember a lot of that trip. But then I also went to my dad's hometown in Italy when I was in the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college. And that was awesome. That trip was great. I remember that trip very well. So yeah, I've been overseas. What crazy thing is happening overseas that I need to know about?
Well, you were there. I don't know if did you get a chance to visit the country of Taured while you were there?
The country of Taured? No.
Yeah. No? Are you familiar with the country of Taured at all?
I'm not familiar with the country of Taured, and I'm not great at geography, so this might be a very normal country that I've just never heard of.
No, it's
but
fine.
Something tells me it's not.
No, you're not the only one who hasn't, because neither had the customs and immigration agents working at Haneda Airport in Tokyo, which is why they were kind of caught off guard when a sharp-dressed man presented them with a passport for a country that, at least in this universe, doesn't exist. Today, Chris, we're going to be talking about the man from Taured. Are you familiar with this story at all?
Now that you mention this and the Japanese piece of it, it's vaguely familiar, but I don't know really any of the details. So, yeah, let's get into it. Tell me more about this man from Taured.
All right. So it's the morning of July 1954 at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. International flights had been arriving throughout the morning, passengers shuffling through customs. You know how airports work. Among those arriving was a well-dressed Caucasian man who appeared to be in his mid-40s, carrying himself like a man who's done this a million times. He was dressed in a nice tailored business suit, crisp white shirt, polished shoes, neatly knotted tie. He was dressed like what the Japanese would call like a salary man. You know what I'm talking? Now, at first glance, nothing about him seems special. He's just a business dude at a Tokyo airport. I'm sure he's one in a million. But that all changed when he presented his passport. The document seemed genuine enough. It was bound in the style you would have found on all European passports at the time, complete with official-looking stamps, seals, entry and exit markings from multiple countries, including Japan. The trouble, though, was that the issuing nation was the nation of Taured. Now, this threw customs officers through a bit of a loop. No one on duty had ever heard of the country of Taured, so they had like a little aside, did some quick reference checks, and confirmed that no, this was not a real place at all. It was not listed anywhere among recognized nations. I don't know how they did that. Like, I don't know if they have like a cheat sheet somewhere. I assume they probably just looked at a map. Like,
yeah. And how is this country? How's this name of this country spelled?
Taured.
Okay. All right. So there's a little bit of maybe the root Latin for bull in there. Maybe. It also sounds like maybe an ingredient in Red Bull. Taured.
But even as the customs agents were questioning this man's like literal existence, he stayed calm. I don't know if I would in that matter, but he stated very matter-of-factly that Taured was in fact a real and sovereign nation located between France and Spain and had been there for more than 1,000 years. So
definitely not. I can fact check that right now. That's incorrect, sir. I don't know where he thinks he's been, but...
Well, to call his bluff, or out of just genuine curiosity, the customs agents were like, all right, prove it. Point it out on this map. And he did so without hesitation. He pointed to the region in the Pyrenees Mountains, and there is a country there. The only problem is that country is Andorra, not Taured. Now, upon learning this information, the man's demeanor shifted from just like polite assurance to just full-on genuine confusion. Like, even he was like, what the fuck is happening here? The man insisted that he had never heard of such a country and that this is where the nation of Taured is located. So now everyone is confused. Officials are confused because the man has what seems to be a legitimate passport and documentation from a country that does not exist. And this man's having an existential crisis because his whole reality at this point is shifting. And you can see his demeanor change because of it.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm one of those people who, if like, I think it's called the spotlight effect, where if somebody questions you, you immediately start to think like, oh no, I must be wrong. I must have done something stupid. There's no, like if this official person is saying, well, hang on a second, that's not right, I start to panic. So I can only imagine how scary it is when you've ended up in a reality where you are completely wrong and no one's going to believe you.
Yeah.
This guy was having a very bad day.
And especially in a foreign country. Like, it's not like you're being questioned by like authorities like in your own place. Like, you're somewhere completely different.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if he was speaking Japanese or if the Japanese were speaking English, or they were both speaking a third language.
So that
would be interesting.
He was fluent in Japanese, so he was able to speak with them. No problem. He was fluent in French,
gotcha,
Japanese, and I believe another language as well. And I'm sure whatever they speak in Taured, they never said what it was. But where it's located, it could be either French or Spanish. I have no idea. So,
or taurine. It could be.
So now it was time to call in some more senior officials, and he was interrogated and questioned almost immediately. At first, officials assumed that this was just like a simple misunderstanding, either like a translation error, or maybe it was just like an unfamiliar regional name for like a real country or something, which does happen. Countries call themselves other things regionally on their own. It's like Germany and Deutschland kind of thing. But he insisted that no, this was not the case. The man claimed, and as evidenced by his passport, that this was not his first time in Japan and that he had been regularly coming and going from Japan for business regularly over the past 5 years without incident. When asked about his current business in Japan, he said that he was scheduled to meet with representatives from a company based in Tokyo and named the firm and his contacts without hesitation. But when customs officials called to confirm, they were told that there was no such meeting and that no one at this company had ever heard of this guy. They then asked him about like his lodging, like where he was going to be staying in Tokyo. And he said he had a room booked at a hotel in central Tokyo, but when they contacted the hotel, they had no reservation for anyone under his name for the dates that he was supposedly supposed to be staying there.
And so the business that he said that he had business with was a real business that they contacted?
Yeah, the business was real. The hotel was real, but when they called to like confirm whether he was actually meeting someone or staying at the hotel, there was no record of him. No one knew who he was. Nothing like that.
Okay. Crazy.
All right, so well then they were like, all right, well maybe if we check his passport, that'll give us some clues as to like what we're missing here and figure out who this dude is or what he's like where he's from. But that just made everyone more confused. The booklet was printed in a language that no one could immediately identify. It said it was kind of like a mix. It wasn't like quite French. It wasn't quite Spanish. And it was like a weird amalgamation of the two, kind of. The stamps inside were legit though, like from real countries, complete with like proper dates and official port of entry seals. So that wasn't really any help. So they figured, well, maybe what's in his wallet? Like they found banknotes from multiple countries, French, Japanese, German, all of which were consistent with his claimed travel history. So that didn't really help anything. But he did carry a checkbook that was tied to a bank in Taured. So all they had to do was contact the bank and get this all settled. The problem is the bank, when checked against international registries, the bank also did not exist. So this dude is sitting here listening to is sitting here listening to all of this with growing frustration, and he's insisting that with his whole chest that it all had to be a mistake. He had visited Japan a bunch of times, always without incident. Taured was a real and sovereign nation, older than many other countries, he stated, and the fact that no one here recognized it was just absolutely absurd. It's not. I can't imagine what this dude's going through.
No, I mean, he must be completely spiraling out at this point, and I think it's the language thing is interesting because he said that the country was between France and Spain, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that the language was a mix of both is kind of interesting. But I feel like what's interesting is that it seems like if we go with the idea that this guy shifted realities somehow, it's not just his physical being that shifted reality. It seems like he was able to shift realities with a couple of artifacts from the old reality, which raises a lot of questions about how exactly that reality shifting would happen and why only those artifacts came through and no other residual Taured material made it. Was it only things that were on his person were able to make it? Or
that's what I'm thinking, is that it's probably like just what would just happen to be in his pockets or like bag at the, you know what I mean, like anything that was on him, because it doesn't seem like anyone else on that flight into Tokyo had this problem, or if there was,
well, right, and
it didn't get caught.
Where did he get on the flight again?
From I don't know where he got on the flight from. He said he was doing business all around Europe, but I'm pretty sure he came from Taured to Tokyo.
Well, they better call the airline then. I mean, like that's because then everybody else on that plane would have been on Taured Air along with him. So
yeah, I don't know.
He wouldn't have been the only one.
Yeah, you would think that unless it was just, I don't even know how to like. Yeah, I wouldn't even. I don't know. I think we're thinking about it. I think that's the problem. If we put more than 2 seconds of thought into this.
Yeah, it's one of those mysteries that doesn't really bend to logic. It's sort of just one of those universal things where if this wasn't, well, I don't know. Are you gonna get to theories, or should I?
Oh yeah, we'll get into some theories, but we can talk about some of them now. Why not?
Okay. I was just gonna say. I mean, either this guy somehow, did shift realities, which there's stories in the past of throughout different newspapers and collections of folklore of people who have stepped through, whether it's like through like a fairy circle or something that they've stepped through into another reality or another dimension. There are people who have claimed these things before. Nobody had, or I would say this is one of the more very slight differences in reality. It wasn't like a lot of fairy circle stories are like, I stepped through and it was a whole other world and there were sparkling gems or I felt like I was underwater or whatever. This guy just was like in another boring ass airport.
That's the worst kind of interdimensional travel. It's like you step through into like a whole new universe or whatever, and you're like, it's just as mundane. Like that's such a boring alternate dimension to go into. You're just like, fuck, I have to go do business now. The only other worst place to realize that you slipped timelines or something would be at the DMV, where you're just like, oh god damn it. And
In the other in the other reality, I was at the front of the line. Okay, I don't need to go to the back. I was at the front.
Yeah. So by this point, the situation is like it's escalated far beyond like a routine customs check. So the authorities decided the best option was to get him out of the hotel or out of the airport and put him somewhere more secure until they could figure it out, like who or what they were dealing with. So they made arrangements for him to be put up in a nearby airport like hotel, like like the shitty hotels by the airports that like airline crews and like layover people stay at. It wasn't anything special. He was escorted to the hotel under guard, but they made sure to let him know that he wasn't under arrest, but he was not free to leave either. So once at his room, which wasn't anything special, it's just like a bed, a desk, bathroom. Like there's no adjoining doors or balcony, only one way in or out, and that was through the front door where they had stationed 2 immigration officers who were ordered to keep him in his room until further notice. Now, reportedly, the dude remained pretty cooperative. Like he hung out in his room, kept to himself, got some room service for dinner, and he didn't show any signs of like agitation or anything. Like by all accounts, he gave off the impression that he expected all this to be cleared up by the morning and then he'd be on his way to go do business with whatever he does. But by morning, he was gone. Like when the guards unlocked the door to bring him back for questioning, the room was completely empty. His clothes, briefcase, passport, personal effects, all gone with him. There was no sign of a struggle, no open windows, and no way he could have just like slipped by the guards without being seen. The dude just vanished into thin air. How are we feeling about that?
Holy shit. I mean, I feel like Taured's technology that because here's the thing.
Well, we don't know if it was like we don't know if it was a technology thing. Like it could have just been like a wormhole or whatever that TV show was where like the plane went like 15 years into the future or whatever. Or sliders. Yeah, it could be a sliders thing. Like, but I don't. It could be a natural occurring.
You slip timelines. How are you slipping back less than 24 hours later? I guess maybe the universe just writes itself or something.
Yeah, it could just be like a blip.
Yeah, you go to sleep and you wake up back in your bed in Taured and think, wow, what a crazy dream that was. And meanwhile, back in our reality, we're still talking about this, 60, 70 years later?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also very curious. This guy, it seems like doing business was an actual job in Taured, with the amount of insistence he had that he was just here to do business without, it seems like, a ton of details as to what that business was.
I think like those details, like what he actually did for work and stuff like that was never mentioned anywhere, which is probably for convenience for the story, I assume.
Right. They should have checked my co-host on Scared All the Time, Ed Vicola, has a theory about you can tell if someone's from another dimension if you check the tags on their clothes, because they won't be clothing labels that you've ever heard of before. So they should have done that. They should have strip searched this man and checked his underwear to see what brand underwear he was wearing, or pants or shirt or anything. It reminds me a little bit of there's a lot of Reddits or subreddits about slipping dimensions or Mandela effect type stuff, where one or two details in the world have changed and people insist that means that they have been able to shift dimensions or that they've accidentally fallen into a new dimension. But in those cases, it's always something relatively insignificant.
Yeah.
Like the spelling of Bernstein Bears, or
the cornucopia on the...
Yeah. Like the cornucopia on Fruit of the Loom, or if the movie Shazam exists, which I have to admit, I don't know if any listeners have followed much about Mandela effects and that sort of thing, but the Shazam one got me, because one of the first times I ever heard about Mandela effect was an article. I was reading it and they were talking about the Sinbad movie Shazam and how it had come out around the same time as Kazam, sort of like Armageddon and Deep Impact.
Yeah.
And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, yeah. I remember the movie, blah, 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 blah. And then it hits the twist in the article where they're like, except Shazam never existed. And I was like, hang on, full fucking stop. What do you mean Shazam never existed? Like, I thought that movie was real. But then the thing that has convinced me that all these Mandela effects are really just some sort of like pre-meme
Yeah.
meme that existed like in our subconscious is that nobody has a clear recollection of what the movie Shazam was about, myself included.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me feel like there's no way that because if it was some sort of interdimensional sliding thing, like somebody would have some clear memory, and probably more than one person would have some clear memory of, oh yeah, the movie started even roughly, like this happened in the first couple minutes, and then this happened, and then at the end this happens, and nobody has ever been able to come forward and say that they know what happened in that movie. So I do think it probably is just some weird hiccup in our brains, but that kind of stuff is interesting and not exactly what's happening here. This is less of a collective experience and more of one guy's crazy experience. But
this is one singular dude's Mandela effect.
Yes. I'm also trying to think like, this is how many years is this after the bomb got dropped?
This is 1954.
So what, like 10 years on from Japan getting the bomb drop. So I wonder if there could have been any weird, spycraft or something going on. Like, could this have been somebody trying to test for like security lapses somehow in their immigration system by having all these forged documents and trying to see which things worked, like what seemed realistic to them and what didn't, or could this have been some sort of an information gathering exercise by somebody?
You're maybe. Well, don't worry, we're gonna get to it, don't worry about it.
Okay, I'll let you keep going then. Keep going.
All right, so where were we? Oh, so the dude's gone. He just vanished out of nowhere. The guards and the authorities, they did an immediate search of the hotel and surrounding areas, but they didn't turn up anything. Immigration records showed no one boarded a plane under his name or description. There was no trains, buses, or taxis reported picking up a passenger matching his description. And as far as the official record was concerned, like the man Taured just ceased to exist, and with no real way to do any further investigating, at least by like 1954 standards, the case went cold. It's hard to investigate a man that just stopped existing from a country that doesn't exist. So now, Chris, as you're probably wondering, where does this story come from, and is there any real proof that this actually happened? We've already been kind of talking about it, and the answer is no, not really.
Well, that solves a lot of my problems then. that answers a lot of questions. I was approaching this as if there was a record or something, but if there is no real proof, then I suspect I might know where this man was from, and the answer is fiction.
Well, yes and no. Like when researchers looked for any sort of like paper trail, like police reports, immigration logs, newspaper coverage from 1954, nothing turns up. And for something as wild as businessman from unknown country disappears under mysterious circumstances, you would think that there would be something, which leaves us with two possibilities. One, the government and the powers that be deliberately buried this story for reasons, or two, it wasn't in the public records in 1954 because it hadn't happened yet. So don't get excited. This isn't like time travel or anything like that. It's
okay.
It's just that when researchers went digging for evidence from 1954, like I said, for police reports, logs, articles, nothing came up. There was no mention of a mysterious man from an unknown country disappearing from a Haneda Airport hotel, which is weird. You would think something would come up if this actually happened. So that's why some people suspect that the 1954 date may be like a later invention, because when you look up anything resembling the Taured story, the closest match turns up several years later in a case that is very real, very documented, but far less paranormal. So in 1959, the Japanese authorities arrested a man by the name of John Allen Kutcher Zegras. I think that's how you pronounce it. I didn't bother looking it up because I don't care enough. He was an international con artist and forger who had been living in Japan with his wife. He was arrested for presenting a passport from a country no one had ever heard of named Taured.
Taured.
The
Nice.
the passport, just like the one in the story, was super elaborate. It was printed in an unknown language with entry and exit stamps from multiple countries. And just like the man from Taured, Zagreus carried various currencies, spoke multiple languages, and told very convincing stories about his travel. But unlike the man from Taured, Zagreus didn't vanish from a locked hotel room. He was caught, arrested, tried in a Tokyo court, convicted of fraud, sentenced to prison, and then eventually deported to Hong Kong. So
Okay. It did not disappear from his prison cell.
no, he was. I mean, he did, but because they forced him out of the country.
Yeah.
So the similarities between the two stories are kind of hard to ignore, but so are the differences. Like over time, it seems that the real story lost its messy legal ending in favor of a more mysterious one. And that happened because French writer Jacques Berger published a modified version of the story in 1964, shifting the date to 1954, dropping Zagreus's name and adding some Cold War overtones to the story. And then by 1981, authors Colin Wilson and John Grant condensed that into a brief entry in their book titled The Directory of Possibilities, and they presented it more as an unsolved mystery rather than a closed case with an actual ending. And then from there, the internet just pretty much finished the transformation. Like the story was retold on early paranormal and urban legend websites in the late 1990s and early 2000s, with each iteration kind of reshaping what was once a documented forgery case into like this neat interdimensional cinematic tale that we know today. So I don't know if that answers any of your questions, but
Oh yeah, it answers. Yeah, I mean, it answers all of them. The only thing it doesn't answer is I bet this guy. I forget his entire name that you laid out there.
it's so long.
But he probably had an interesting life even before he became the subject of the man from Taured myth. If he was a guy who was traveling internationally and a forger on the level of being able to forge a passport and stamps, and that guy was probably up to some adventures before he got caught. So I would love to just read a biography about him.
It was very like, he reminded me of like the dude from Leonardo DiCaprio from Catch Me If You Can. It was like,
yes,
from what I know about him, he did check fraud, bank fraud, identity fraud. Like he did it all, and this just happened to be the one thing that brought him down. I think it was the boldness of creating a whole country and language. You know, if he just stuck with normal shit, he would have been fine.
Well, it makes you wonder if that had ever worked somewhere in like maybe a smaller country, or because it's a pretty, if things had been going all right for this guy, it does seem insane to go to a level of making up a country that and then trying to use that cover story to get into, you know, a fairly, even though Japan in the 1950s and 60s isn't what it is today, it's still, you know, is a fairly large country on the world stage. You weren't exactly slipping through the shadows on your fake passport somewhere in you know, some small island country or something, where I feel like maybe you could get away with it pre-computer, you know, pre-internet or something. But I would love to know what moved him to take the con to that level, and then, because that, it's also, I mean, maybe it was just some sort of, you know, a lot of criminals get to the point where they like want to be known for the extent of their crimes,
like a hubris type thing.
Yeah, maybe that was him, you know, turning himself in a way and thinking maybe, you know, I mean, I guess if it went down in history in a way that he probably never could have imagined, but it certainly did go down in history as a wild tale. I respect the hustle.
But even with like the Zagreus case, like this is likely the foundation for the man from Taured legend. But some people don't buy it, and there are theories that are still being thrown around today, and they usually fall into like three different categories of who the man from Taured is. The most popular explanation in paranormal circles is that the man was a traveler from a parallel Earth, One similar enough to ours that most geography matched, but different enough that his home nation of Taured existed instead of Andorra. Like that's the only difference.
I like to think that in that world, I like to think that in that world, he went on to direct the film Shazam.
Maybe. Let's hope. The second one is time travel. Some interpretations suggest the man was a time traveler from either the past or the future, caught in an era where his country did not exist. The theory, like this, is like often tied to like speculative physics about branching timelines. Like kind of think of like Loki and that kind of, it's basically what it's kind of the same thing as that. There's no evidence to support any of this. And then the final theory is the one that we pretty much already know, is that it's misremembering, myth building. Like the legend is a product of decades of retellings, translation errors, and embellishments, likely starting with the real Zegra's case. And then the names, dates, and events were shifted to make the story cleaner, stranger, and more shareable on the internet. Like the locked room disappearance thing, like in particular, is widely considered a later invention to the story. But you know, whether you treat this as the story of an interdimensional traveler or a passport forgery that snowballed into an urban legend, you know, the man from Taured remains one of the most enduring quote unquote mystery travel stories like ever recorded, I guess you'd want to say, especially on the internet. But there you go, Chris. There you have it. That is the story of the man from Taured. I hope you enjoyed it. You got any thoughts, questions, concerns?
I love it. I mean, I'm concerned for whoever thinks that it is anything but obviously a mishmash of retellings of the story about a guy who literally showed up at an airport with a passport from Taured. Like, I think that's kind of what, really seals the deal there, that as much as you might want to stretch and reach and hope that, I'd be more willing to believe that John Titor or Titor from the internet was actually a time traveler than the man from Taured was not just a sort of folkloric retelling of this event that actually happened. But no, it's a crazy story. I feel like, that I think there's something so hooky about, probably the reason it's stuck around is there's something very sticky or hooky about the idea of a guy showing up at an airport with a passport from a country that doesn't exist. It's very perfectly Twilight Zone. It's very, the pieces just fit in a way that you go, oh yeah, like you want to believe it. It's like J.J. Abrams could never, he would, that would be a great opening scene to a J.J. Abrams pilot. It also gives me a chance to shout out, it's not exactly the same, but it's a great parallel Earth show called God, now I'm gonna forget the name. Is it Counterpart? You might have to delete. No, yeah, okay, yeah, Counterpart with J.K. Simmons is a great Cold War thriller. It was on, I think, Stars for like a season or two. And it's basically, I don't know how much I really want to give away, but I don't think anybody watched this show. So it's very hard to talk about it without giving anything away. But it's essentially a story of East and West Berlin if the wall was dividing two different dimensions instead of two different cities.
That's fucking rad.
And J.K. Simmons plays a version of the same character living on both sides of the wall. It's a really, really underrated show. And because it's that perfect kind of genre fiction where like it's our world, but just a little bit different. And it really is just a spy story with this slightly science fiction twist to it, and J.K. Simmons giving two incredible performances. So,
I'd expect nothing less from him.
Kind of reminds me of the man from Taured. Yeah. So I would check that out if you haven't. But yeah, other than that, man, this was fun. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad I'd never heard of the European country of Taured before.
Hell yeah, man.
Next time I go to Europe, I'll visit.
Yeah, just send me a postcard, let me know how it is. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm stoked you enjoyed it. Before we end the episode, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to shout out, mention?
Oh, yeah. Listen to Scared All the Time. Anywhere you get your podcasts. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, you probably can listen to Scared All the Time. It is a show that my co-hosts and I, each week we explore a new fear. Sometimes they're universal fears. Sometimes they're very specific. And we come out every other week. And if you sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/scared all the time, at our lowest Patreon level, you can sign up to get our other show, New Fear Unlocked, that fills in the gaps between those weeks. So you can get Scared All the Time every week if you dig what you hear. So support Cryptid Cocktail. These guys rock. I mean, if you're listening already, you know that, but I think they're a key part of the new wave of paranormal podcasting. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, this was fun. And hopefully we can do it again soon.
Yeah, man. All right. And if they want to find you on the internet, where can they find you? Or at least Scared All the Time on the internet?
Yeah, we Scared All the Time is on Instagram. And if you want to find me, I'm at Chris Cullari. It's pretty much just Instagram for us these days. We do have a Facebook group for Scared All the Time if you're a big Facebook head. But we stopped with Twitter because unless you pay for Twitter now, no one sees your shit.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much just Facebook and Instagram, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hell yeah, man. All right. Well, with that out of the way, normally Sarge says goodbye and I love you to the audience, but would you want to take the reins and say goodbye, I love you to the audience?
Audience, adieu, ciao, I love you, we love you, and we'll catch you next time.
Cryptid Cocktail Party! Cryptid Cocktail